Oh, yeah, everybody.
All right.
Pull
Hold on.
them close and talk into them.
This is the September 8th, 2022 meeting of the Isle Palms Environmental Advisory Committee. Would like to state that the press and the public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. First order of business is approval of the previous meeting's minutes from August the 11th. Anybody have any corrections or changes to the minutes?
I move the minutes be approved as written.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right. I don't think we have any citizens' comments, so we'll move on to old business. The first thing is wildlife update on public education campaign regarding beach rules. As you know, at our last meeting, we were talking about making an application to the ATAX committee to get funding for signs in the shape of turtles. And since then, the city staff has said that maybe it can be done without applying to the ATAX committee meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that fund is really for putting tourists into overnight lodging. So I think the staff looked at these, and that can be obviously there's a broad reach of things that can qualify, but I think the staff felt that these were not really tied to accommodations per se, but they're definitely within an amount that the staff is comfortable spending on the signage without doing that. So we are moving forward with purchasing them. Amy is our sign expert and has been dealing closely with some sign vendors. We still haven't ordered them yet, but I think we're on the cusp of being able to do that. We wanted to just work with, the shape and the language and the font on the signs. What you have in your packet is the most recent rendering. We've had discussions about whether the QR code should be a separate sticker, but we do one way or another. These will have added to them a QR code and the city seal. So we're working through the sign folks with that. I would expect by your next meeting, we will have possession of the signs and probably be in the process of installing them. I think there's over 50. I think we're going to order 51 or 50. So that's the plan.
That's great.
At every beach access, and we've met with Robert on a couple of them to just talk about locations. We didn't really want to put it right where the main sign is. There was also concern if you got too far back right at the ocean that those would potentially fall at a high tide. So we're kind of trying to choose a location that's back from the dune enough that the kids haven't already lost their mind with the sight of the ocean and people would notice it. So that project is underway. If anybody has any feedback on the signs, we'd welcome it, but otherwise we're just moving that project ahead.
Linda had some feedback and we changed the wording to make them action verbs. We were able to do that, all except for the lighting one. That was kind of a harder one to do. So it's not exactly as action verb
Okay.
related as the others, but I think doing that and adding the QR code and putting fill in holes first, since we did not get the ordinance for the holes, we put that at the top of the list, hoping that would be, if they didn't read anymore, they
rest
would see that. And we added litter, which is part of our committee's
Amy, do you have
work.
Linda's edits?
Is there a mock-up? It's not the one that was in the package though, because it says leave no, okay. Okay, then that is the, what we could say about the flashlights, just say turn off flashlights, because that's another verb. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know.
Around
But
turtles.
But then we went back and forth with the turtle people about all flashlights don't have to be turned out.
Yeah, but
So,
it,
you
so,
know, it
yeah,
gets-
so
you
what?
get
Let them
kinda-
turn them off. Most of the people on the beach aren't as educated as the turtle people, but No, I think this is going to be very helpful.
I'm excited about it too. I think it's a great thing.
So are there additional edits, Linda, from the one in the packet?
Oh,
'Cause
no, no,
that's-
no,
Does that one look okay to?
that's what we talked about
Okay.
at the end of the last meeting.
Okay,
And
good.
After it's
we
over.
did change the others.
Yeah.
To leave notes.
Maybe.
I can copy edit. I've done that a lot in my
Yeah.
life.
I do like,
Douglas Point House, the big green one, we had, did have Bill Holmes years ago.
Really?
That one that had the list of like.
Yeah.
50 things. Do not,
Oh,
do
yeah.
not
Yeah.
Yeah.
fill holes and yeah, Phil Holes was on that list of things not to do. I didn't grab anybody's attention clearly.
Not too long. Didn't make much of an.
The turtle's shape will grab attention though.
Yeah,
I agree.
that's such a good idea. Right.
So no other questions on that. I think we're in good shape. We're moving that forward and should have some good progress to report at our next meeting.
Do you want to do coyote sighting?
Yeah,
I'm so glad that you sent this police report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was so
I know, that was
interesting, not
so
just the
interesting.
coyote
Yeah.
sighting.
Um,
Yeah.
this was kind of touched on at our last meeting, just a sheer count. I don't know, and you can see, the numbers are significantly down
Mhm.
this year over last, the same period. I don't know if that's less coyotes or less people. Maybe we're just kind of getting used to them. I don't know. Deb, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a very subjective number because, yeah, maybe they're not reporting them or maybe they're
Right.
seeing less. No way to know. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested in knowing who's controlling them. Is animal control trapping them, or do they call DNR to trap them?
Amy?
Like nobody
idea?
seems to know.
I don't
Somebody's gotta
think,
know.
I think, so my impression, and I'll put this on our list of things to verify, but my impression is if there is a sighting or somebody really kind of complains and brings it to the attention of the animal control people,
Mhm.
and there is a public, they can't trap on private property, so they couldn't go on one of y'all's lots and do it. But if there's the Carmen R. Bunch Park, I know they had a trap there for a while because it was public. Beach access paths are public. I don't know that we would have one on a path, but it has to have a public space adjacent to it. I think they will set a trap, and I believe it's our animal control officers that actually set it. What they do if and when they capture them, and I know that they don't capture many, but I remember there would be kind of a report of we got one, or there was occasionally one captured. I think they called DNR at that point,
Mhm.
once we had captured one and got advice on how to handle it from there. But I would need to verify all of it. That's all
Yeah.
kind of off the top of my head what I think happens. But if we want to, if you kind of want to know more, I could certainly get the police chief to better describe exactly how that's being handled.
I'd like to know which type of trap they're using. Is it the foot trap or the have a heart type?
I think it's the have a heart
Good,
trap.
Yeah.
Pretty confident in that.
because dogs can get into the foot one
Yeah,
and get
yeah.
injured. Good. And it's more humane too.
Would it be appropriate for me to speak with someone at animal
Sure.
control?
Sure. I mean, if you want to, I tell you what, let me create a email thread,
Okay.
and with the three of us, the police chief, you, and I'll start it. And then that can kind of get a conversation rolling. And if just so we're all and I would allow you to have the conversation, allow me to be aware of the response and able to report back to the group.
Okay.
So I'll do that, start kind of a three-way thread on that.
The
Sounds great.
irony of it is that we're about a third of the number of coyotes reported, and yet the predation on the turtle nest has happened for
Been
the first
worse.
time this year. I think it's probably just a few coyotes doing it
Mm.
at the north end. we didn't even screen our nests from the pier southward because although there are coyotes there, they don't know how to do the first night predation where they encounter the turtle coming up on the beach and just destroy the nest when they see the turtle. And there's
It's
nothing
just
we can do
amazing.
about it because our patrol doesn't go out until dawn, and then we find eggs on the beach.
So you think they're just learning a new hunting skill? Or is it just a
Or it
couple of
could have
bad
been-
apples that
It's
know?
been happening on DeWeese for some time, for quite a few years now. First night predation is what they call it.
Yeah,
And my theory is one of those coyotes
made its
swam
way
over,
over,
Cross.
taught
swam
the
the
rest.
inlet and said, here,
Had a
here's what you do."
seminar.
Yeah,
So
had a
I blame
had a
Judy
seminar.
Fairchild for that. She
Yeah.
lived over there. I told her.
That is very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. But we knew it would happen sooner or later. It's not a surprise. Okay. Is that all on coyotes?
I always learn something from Mary.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Well, would you like we had quite an interesting scare on wildlife this morning. I heard from NOAA that there was an entangled bottlenose dolphin swimming in Breach Inlet. And a woman had reported it she had seen it from the land. And I said, well, she said, do you have Turtle Patrol? And I said, no, we stopped that on August 22nd. But I know a guy who goes out there every day with his dog and watches the dolphins. So I texted him and he said, well, there's a dolphin that I always see that he's wearing on his dorsal fin a tag with a number on it. And could that be what the woman saw?
Oh,
So I got back to NOAA and told them that, and they contacted the woman and she took a picture. And sure enough,
that's what it was?
thank goodness. Yeah. Yeah,
Oh
it was
my
a dolphin with a tag on it. to
Only Mary
identify.
Pringle could
Exactly.
connect those dots.
That's right.
That's
So
amazing.
that was a good
I'm
relief.
saying,
And just as a
share for
follow-
life,
Yeah.
share for life.
That is amazing.
the other thing, I got the necropsy notes back on that one that we had
Right.
at the last meeting, and it was interesting. They took pictures, and the significant findings, besides the emaciation that we knew might have killed it, was that the lungs were congested and they think it probably had pneumonia before it was eaten on after it died. And the really interesting but not good thing was there was possible human interaction. And I printed out the pictures of it was missing 6 teeth, like somebody had just pulled 6 teeth out of the lower right jaw. And there was a really weird cut excision on the dorsal fin. Wow. Which I printed out. I mean, it was a 17-page report, and I forwarded it to the police chief who was out there that day and to Officer Jace Kowski, who was helped us pick it up and put it on the truck. So that was an interesting
That is
thing.
interesting.
But those things happen. And for the loggerheads, just briefly, on the Isle of Palms, we've had 35 nests hatch and 80% have hatched now of the Isle of Palms nests. And only 8 are unhatched. So we're crossing our fingers that no hurricanes are going to wash them away. If we can just get through another couple of weeks, but this is the peak
I know,
season.
you're
So
right.
we're at 79% hatch success, even with the
That's
coyote,
impressive.
even with the
That's
coyotes.
impressive,
Yeah.
really.
Which we've got a couple of inventories tomorrow where it's gonna pull it down because those were coyote nests that we haven't inventoried yet. So that's not gonna help our average at all.
So 79%, that is of all
Of
the
the
eggs
eggs.
that were laid
Laid.
on the island, 79% hatched and made it.
Yeah. Well,
water.
yeah, yeah. Well, a few of them got grabbed by ghost crabs and things, little
Mm.
things like that, but basically that's what
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
But that's not counting the remaining. When you say 8 nests are left,
8 nests are left.
that 79% doesn't include those yet.
No, we'll
Right,
still
okay.
have to get those in. Yeah, and only one on Sullivan's is still out there. So,
So is that a pretty good percentage for you?
yeah,
For
it's
you?
really good.
That's a
The
good
average in the state is about 60%.
60.
Uh-huh.
And that number of nests is, I think you said last month,
56 is the total, but 43 of those were Isle of Palms and 14, is that
Yep,
or so.
or
I might not be
13,
doing it.
yeah.
14 were on 13 or 14 were on Sullivan's.
And that number is above average.
Well, it's not as good as we've always had, and it,
Or
and
below
we'd be up in the 80s and 90s if it
Ah.
weren't for the coyotes
You mean percentage, not
in
mass.
percentages. Yeah,
But you meant the number of nests.
Yes,
I don't.
that number of
understand.
nests is
Oh,
low
that's
for us.
average.
That's average, pretty average.
Yeah, yeah, we're expecting a surge next year. The turtles take, each individual turtle will nest every other year, but the whole coast and even including Florida will have a low year and then a surge. So
The
this
next
was
year.
supposed to be the low year. And because the population is doing so well, it wasn't really a low year. So I mean, it's gonna hit the fan next year.
Oh,
We're
great.
we're gonna have a lot of nests. my
That's
guess
great.
is. Don't hold me to it. All right, that's all I have on wildlife. Anything else?
We need wildlife.
Are you flicked on at the top, Sandy? Towards you? You should,
No, just, no, you were right. If you hit it first.
Do that.
Oh, okay, no, it wasn't it. While we were talking about wildlife, I wanted to ask a question about manatees. Do we do anything in terms of recording of manatee sightings or anything like that?
I,
or-
whenever I see that on Nextdoor or anything, if somebody has seen a manatee, what I post on there is that if you go to the SCDNR website and search manatees, they want you to report manatees.
Oh, okay.
And there were some that were seen in several different places. It was a large one and a small one together. Do you know something about that?
I live on a canal, that at the end
They
of
love
26th Street, and they love the canal. They're there all the time. And I just happen to think is that something that I should be reporting?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know if there was a
They would
mechanism
love
for
for you to
doing that.
report it.
Okay.
And of course, they say, don't feed them lettuce, and they say even don't run fresh water, but it would be hard. I know a lot of people do that, but they don't want them to become dependent on people feeding or watering them with fresh water.
Mhm.
But that's just what I've
So
heard.
that's DNR website?
SCDNR manatees.
Mhm.
And they will ask you questions and you just fill out a form that you don't talk to anybody.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting because NOAA does most of the marine mammals, like the whales and the dolphins,
Mhm.
but DNR still does manatees, at least the sightings. I guess
Mhm.
if one had to be treated, it would be NOAA.
I got you. Okay, yeah, I saw one this week.
Act-
I saw one this
Good,
week. Yeah,
good.
I wanted to call somebody to come and look because.
The sad thing is for marine mammals, there's no treatment facility in South Carolina, and usually they're coming ashore either dead or dying. And what happens is that veterinarian will come and euthanize it because it is dying.
Mhm,
So that's the usual thing, because there's no place to take them, like the
Mhm.
aquarium, you know,
mhm.
they can't treat dolphins
Right.
or whales.
Yeah. And I think these are healthy. The ones that I've seen behind the house are healthy ones.
I hope the boats
Yeah.
will hit them. That's their main.
It's a pretty protected little area, and so there's not a lot of boat traffic. And then the boats that are going through the canal, since it's a dead end, it is people are usually at idle speed.
Good.
Mhm.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Are we ready to move on to litter?
yes.
Update on Fisher Recycling.
So we have entered into a contract and the contract's executed with Fisher Recycling. We did a little bit of, if you remember, Doug had concern about liability of the materials if they were improperly handled. So we modified the agreement a bit to just be sure that that concern was adequately dealt with, which we think it is. We also had at our last meeting, we talked about the kind of key locations. This group identified the Harris Teeter. So we needed to go have conversations with the Harris Teeter. They were fantastic, and it did take
Great.
a little bit of time for the local manager to have a conversation with Fisher in terms of exactly what it would be on their site and talk and choose a location, but that has happened. Harris Teeter is agreeable to having having the bins at that location. So that's all a go. We do think it's gonna be on the side of the Harris Teeter. If you're looking at the Harris Teeter on the left side, there's kind of a driveway there. They didn't want them kind of front and center of the store. Just for appearances, I think. So they're gonna be on the side of the store. The Fisher and then we also have a grant application that I think, and Matt's been handling that, and I think that's completed now, waiting for a submission. I think Fisher was waiting until the grant award happened. But I think we're now at a point where we will just go ahead and deploy the bins, take our chances that the grant doesn't go through, which I think everybody is okay, even if it were to not happen. Would be great if we do get the reimbursement of the grant, but so we've been making good progress on that, and I would expect those bins to go out also within the next 30 days. The second set of bins will be at the marina. We think it'll be, there's just been a new dumpster enclosure built down at the marina. We think they'll be right next to that dumpster enclosure. We've been meeting with those tenants about that. And then once they are finally deployed, the city will try to publicize the service and their location and try to push that out through the social media outlets that we use.
Probably
get-
good to try to get a photo and get it in Island Eye News. to
Yeah.
do that. Yeah,
We
Yeah.
could do that.
showing how
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe like a write-up.
little
Uh-huh.
article.
Mhm.
Do you think putting it
I'll
on
have
the
to take that.
message sign the city has at the foot of the connector, or is that too much? Too long to put in there? Because some people don't really read the Island Eye. Sometimes mine doesn't get delivered. by the
Again, Amy
mailman.
is our sign expert. Amy, she goes out there with
hiding.
the
She's hiding.
changeable letters, and sometimes she may want to ring us up. If it gets too, she'll do it for your group, I think.
Yay. Wonderful.
That's a good idea, though. Maybe when they happen,
When
maybe.
when it's ready.
Um,
Thank you so much for doing that, Douglas.
Yeah, that's
That's
great.
Great.
yeah, they were very excited that Harris Teeter, like I said, was very willing and very cooperative and getting that
It's
approval.
good for them too, because
so.
it could be seen as a lead into the store. Somebody goes to take their glass and then go, oh yeah, I need a 6-pack of beer or something, so it'll be good for them. It'll be good PR for them. So everybody kind of wins.
And I think a lot of residents don't even realize that the glass that the county takes is just put in a landfill.
I
It's a
didn't
good
until
education
Belvin
piece
brought
Right.
it
Yeah.
up. the other
Right.
day.
Yeah.
I had no
Tell me, you
idea.
see the dumpster, there's gonna be, if you're facing the grocery store, is it gonna be on the left or the right?
On
Back
the
on
left,
the
and
left, okay.
it's really only gonna be like your blue bin. It's gonna be like that. It's gonna be 2 of them.
Okay.
It's gonna be like that blue bin, but green with the Fisher Recycling logo on it.
Okay.
So a little bit worried that it's not gonna, I mean, it's not a great big
Yeah, I
bin.
know. I
it's
was
not a
thinking I
lot
could
of-
fill up a green bin in
Yeah.
a week.
So a little concerned that they'll kind of blend into the landscape. So we'll just have to kind of push the word out. I'll also say that at the Chamber of Commerce meeting, those rental owners were already, the rental companies were already aware of this effort and asking about, when should we expect them? Where will they be?
Good.
So
Oh,
there's already
good,
kind of
good.
been, so to your point, we could get to a point where 2 is filled up, kind of instantly.
They
Well, I'm
open-
glad there's interest.
How often are they coming to pick up? And are they
We-
open to expanding weekly?
Weekly.
And if we need more, they,
I think we'd have to, I think their
Revisit.
pricing to us was based on kind of one trip to 2 locations. I think if we wanted more, we could probably get them to do it, but I'm assuming that's their primary expense is those pickups. I feel sure that if they're picking up 2 bins, if it were 4 bins on the same frequency, I doubt that would cost anything, but we'd have to.
Yeah, there are more than
have this
two
kind-
bins at Firefly Distillery, which is currently with the other location that they have bins. I think there are 3 or 4 bins at Firefly. So
Is
So
there,
we'll work, if that is an issue of too little space and their popularity calls for more either frequency or bins, I feel sure we can.
if we're gonna
manage
put
that.
something out educational wise, letting people know there's this option, it might be good to know if they can't be dropped off, say like in a brown paper bag, people might collect them in their brown paper bags they have left over and they want to dump them in there, like would Fisher say, glass only, don't throw paper in there. We might want to get clarification.
That's a good question.
Because we
Yeah.
might want to let people know, like, it can only be glass, you can't put containers that you are holding your glass in those bins.
There was the concern about the transfer of glass, happening on a parking lot. If a brown paper bag breaks,
Right.
it all, breaks right on the parking lot. Who's gonna handle that? What's the response gonna be? So there's definitely gonna be some, a learning curve to how all these things come into play, but I do think that's a great question as to, is it have to only be the glass, no paper bags, no. Don't know the answer.
Have
to
they
that.
addressed that at this point? Have they addressed that in the
No,
contract? Just curious.
No, and that was a question of Harris Teeter, and I think that we all thought that the most appropriate, and if Harris Teeter is available, that they're gonna be there daily with employees. I think that was a part that if I had to guess where we would have an issue, if the site becomes kind of unmanageable, I think they would say, and we did have to say, it's a year pilot. And they kind of made it clear that the approval is for a year. But if things start going south and it's just broken glass all over the parking lot, which I don't think it will be. I think if you're conscientious enough to take your glass to a bin, you're probably conscientious enough to get it in there or clean up a mess that you made. So I don't think anybody was terribly concerned about it, but it's a concern that's been brought up that we'll need to kind of watch.
Okay.
Excellent.
I have one more waste thing. So Betsy LaForce with the Coastal Conservation League has been helping out Katie McCain, who's the sustainability director of the city of Charleston, on potentially expanding the compost program they have going to other municipalities. She reached out to me recently asking who to talk to in an IOP in Sullivan's. Douglas, I gave her your name,
Okay,
your contact info. And I'm not sure what the details of that are yet, but for context, the city currently has a compost pickup program where at 3 different locations in the city of Charleston, you can drop off your compost and they will take it, and it's with, I think, Smart Recycling. They'll take it and they'll get recycled. The compost will be processed. So it's a free compost service. It's not pickup, it's drop off, but that's something the city has going on. And I think there's some interest with the city in trying to get other pickup locations around the county. So Isle of Palms is on their list. And that's all I have right now, but it's a very successful program in the city of Charleston. A lot of people are using it.
They don't get dirt back though. Just drop off.
You can go pick up, the composted dirt material, like the rich, nutrient-rich stuff. You can go pick that up at Bees Ferry. If you're interested in the
They
program.
used to sell it. Do they give it away now?
I think if you participate in the program, you get for free. I can't confirm that right now. I'm pretty sure.
So Belvin, would you, from my perspective, the way that I think you kind of shepherded the Fisher recycling proposal was well done, and it worked for the format where we had a thing and a proposal and able to distribute that.
Right.
Would you be able and willing to do that?
Yeah, I
again,
think we
kinda
could do it in the same way where
They
if Betsy is willing, she could come present,
Yep.
just explain the concept to the committee. And then if the committee likes it, we, put it forward as our motion and then moves through the machinery in the same way
Yep.
that the Fisher one did.
Yeah, that would be great, I think, to just kind of have just a one pager that explained it, presentation if she's willing to do it, and then put it through the same process. I think it'd be great. What was the name of the group?
So Betsy LaForce with the Coastal Conservation League.
Oh,
But I believe she's helping out Katie. I believe that she's sort of assisting the City of Charleston Sustainability Department.
okay.
While we're talking about recycling, I wanted to ask about the recycling event that we've had on the Isle of Palms in years past. It's a 1-day event that occurs, I think, in the spring, maybe April. And during that event, they have recycling of a multitude of different things, anywhere, computer, like hard drives and screens, and they have paper shredders there for paper shredding. They have like tons of stuff that you normally have to put in your car and take somewhere in order to recycle it. And I don't think that we have had those.
Had it since COVID.
since COVID.
We used to do that in the city lot.
Did not do it during COVID.
Uh-huh.
And then last year. Nectar. And so. cut it There. Johnny Pitts has said that Charleston County does not do the hazardous waste removal. So.
That's a shame.
Lost that with like old paint and. that
Yes,
stuff,
yes,
so They are not coming up. We mix them together.
Mhm.
And I actually come in my school and I've been reaching out. There are different shred companies, but nobody's responded. And wanting to kind of. It was like a free thing and then we started paying for it. And so we were thinking maybe in November, and then tax season, and try to get it back. We'll put that on the website and stuff like that, but there'll be no more hazardous waste.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what happened to that, but even having the shred day, if we had that maybe a couple of times a year, I think it would be great. Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Pay it,
how much did you say?
It's like 2,500.
Oh,
And there's a lot of them have shred days all over.
gotcha. Okay.
And Brooks County does 2 a year.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
that is.
Okay.
Sorry, which parking lot?
The DMV.
Oh, just across the, by Mount, across the actually Mount Pleasant there.
Hey, Amy, it's that way.
No.
Where do we, the DMV in Mount Pleasant?
Yes, that one.
On the,
Connectors right
the one that.
Is
Don't
it
drive
short
with
word?
me. Don't drive with me.
We'll be the navigator.
Apologize. Exactly. Oh, I'm so
All right.
sorry.
But there is, I was.
thought I was looking at
Orange
you.
dog. It's like something that's green. I know.
Okay.
What about the ban on disposable serviceware? How's that going?
So that date has, you'll remember this group talked about council extended that ban. I'm sorry, that they extended not enforcing a ban on the plastic and single-use dinnerware and styrofoam boxes and things of that nature. That that extension has expired as of now. I think it was September 1st. It expired. So that era is over. The city has reached out to the list to just ensure that everybody that was that we knew of that was using those materials is aware that they should be no longer using those single-use items. So we're kind of back to normal times where it should be, there should be no use of styrofoam, single-use plastic bags, things of that nature.
Well, does the police force ticket abuses of that, or how does
I don't know
that
that they've
work?
ever, the police force they are the ones that enforce it.
Mhm.
I don't know if they've ever actually written a ticket, or I don't know how their enforcement works. I do know that they have kind of a micron meter device that they can take and measure the thickness of bags and things of that nature. So they have been asked to, get the equipment necessary to enforce it adequately. I don't know that they've ever actually written a ticket, but they may have written one. They didn't.
I guess that'd be in their monthly report sometime in September
Yeah.
potentially, right?
Yeah. I know they haven't, well, I know they haven't written one in recent history, but I do recall them having to go buy the equipment to measure bags, and there was kind of an issue. I can't,
Okay.
don't recall if,
So right now in the ordinance, you know, the thick plastic bags that are ostensibly reusable, are those currently
they are-
kosher within
they-
the?
yes, they are allowed.
Okay, because actually at the last City of Charleston Sustainability meeting, they talked about trying to edit those rules because there were, I think, 6 major retailers, Walmart included, that were using those thicker plastic bags. And the issue with the thick plastic bags is that people don't actually reuse them, so they're
even worse
just
than the
they're just
single-use
worse because it's
bag.
just more
More
plastic.
I
plastic.
agree
Yeah.
100%.
And they introduced some rule about no heat sealed, like non-stitched handle. You know, basically a rule that would basically ban it without saying they're banning it, by saying the handle can't be the way that they're used on those
Mhm.
thick plastic bags. So,
So as I understand it, currently, those thick plastic bags are allowed.
okay. Yeah, I guess we can just see, you know, in a month, how many stores are using those and instead of paper bags or a different reusable kind of bag.
I do know at least one merchant was using the thick bags, and that's what led to the plastic measuring device being purchased, because they were using the thicker bags, and it was even questionable, is that even a thick bag? 'Cause, you
Right.
know, the ones that you get that are like from Walmart, they're very thick.
But I agree. I mean, we're probably using more plastic because we don't have a
Right.
good infrastructure to encourage either reuse of those bags or their recycling. So I think it's actually been more detrimental to have those thick bags than the thin ones, to
Right.
be honest.
When you look at the actual human behavior.
Right, it
it's-
hasn't changed
yeah.
because there's no, you know, if you go to Europe, you want to go and want to use a plastic bag, they're going to charge you 50 cents for a bag. Well, people will then reuse their bags,
Right,
right?
yeah.
We don't have that in the US. So I actually think it's been more harmful, but that's
So,
another discussion.
I mean, this kind of leads to what I was thinking about earlier, you know, I think as a committee, just getting the glass recycling is pretty impressive. I'm proud of everybody that made that happen. But still, how do we educate people? You know, what is our plan to? I mean, the sign about the glass recycling, that's a good idea and that's easy, but I'm still wanting to educate people about what goes in a recycling bin. Yes, my friends call me Karen when it comes to recycling. But
I'm right there
but
with you.
we need to find a way to let people know, or it's all, you know, we can sit and talk about it all day, but if we don't share the information, and I think people want to know.
Maybe we need to have some kind of environmental education corner on the Island Eye News or something, because I think education is a big piece. I didn't know that there were certain plastics that you really can't recycle. I was thinking, oh, I
Right.
can recycle number 5, and then I don't know. It's really just 1 and 2. You know, they have the little triangle symbol. It looks like it's being recycled. It's
It
not
used to
true.
be whatever the county had a buyer for, with the
Right.
types, yeah.
So,
So
and I
we
mean,
change the recycling by putting
yeah.
things in there we think are recycling that aren't recyclable, and then
Right,
it just
right.
gets
and I
thrown
just,
out anyway.
I don't know what the answer is, but
I see a lot of styrofoam in recycling bins.
I just see everything, just makes me cringe, you know,
yeah.
or they put the plastic garbage bag full of recycling in the bin.
Right.
And yeah, you know, anyway. Just,
I agree with
Good idea. I thought that the recycling pickup people said they were gonna stop picking up bins that were overflowing with big plastic bags full of stuff, but I haven't seen that happening. I did see one left on Ocean Boulevard that was overflowing with
Yeah.
big white bags.
you know, and that's a shame because that's somebody making a real effort, right?
Yeah. Of
Recycling
course,
everything they
it was a
can.
rental house,
but
so
they're doing
they
it
don't know.
And
Yeah, or there wasn't enough room in the trash, so they just put it.
there's that too, yeah.
The rental.
Um, Anyway, like I said, I don't know what the answer is, but you know, the Island Eye is a good source. Maybe we could, you know,
Island Eye is always, you know, they're always asking and looking for things to write about.
Yeah.
I mean, that would certainly be an avenue. The city struggles just with that same question on everything.
I
You know,
know,
how do you
know.
get the right, because too much and people tune you
Right.
out,
right,
too little, and we obviously get in trouble about,
right.
oh, we didn't know about
Yeah.
that. How do we? So we are constantly kind of struggling with the proper ways and methods to get out the right information.
This
What
might-
about on the IOP.net? There's not a separate page about recycling, I don't think. Maybe that would be an opportunity. I don't know how many recycle users ever drive there, but it does have a place for beach rules. We could have a page for how to recycle on the Isle of Palms.
That's a good idea.
And
I
that
mean,
Well,
at
now-
least would be a
something.
place to
Mhm.
reference.
I do know, that we've been talking internally about the Fisher recycling, pushing that word out. So maybe as kind of an adjunct to that effort of, hey, this is the new effort with glass. Here's, just
reminder
other,
of the
yeah,
other
reminder
things.
of all the
Yeah,
other things.
yeah.
So maybe it could be folded into that.
I'm
Makes
wondering
sense.
whether, would it be useful to reach out to the recycling agency to see if they have when they are making these new blue bins, do they have stickers that they can put on there with a picture that says here, green circle, yes, thumbs
I
up.
do know that my bin I live in West Ashley, but my bin got a large sticker with exactly that
Yeah.
on it.
I have a sticker that has that information on it.
Where did you get it?
I don't know. It came
They-
in the bin, I guess. Or no, I think it came, I can't remember where I got it from.
So
But you
I have
have
an
the-
old bin that they put a new sticker on.
Yeah, and it has an arrow showing how
Yep.
to orient your bin towards the road and things like that.
I don't know how many of those are like that on IOP, but
Mhm.
Yours is not stickered.
I don't think so. I
I
think
mean, it was
I don't
maybe a
think
year
so.
ago, big white sticker. on
Yes,
top.
on the top of the bin. Yeah.
I'll double check.
Yeah.
I don't think I have one.
And of course, they've changed, they've changed their policies over the year. One time it'll be okay for number 5 or it evolves. What they will and won't do evolves with time. So
Yeah, I mean, if we're saying, hey, glass isn't actually recycled as part of the Fisher recycling education push, we can just choose a few other like high profile items that people put in their bins a lot that aren't actually recyclable and just include that
yeah,
in public information. Yeah.
It might be worth a phone call to the recycling
Yep.
people and go, what are the top 5 things that are the
Mhm.
worst
Right.
views that you
Mhm.
see? And then just
Right.
use that information.
I have tried to contact them and I didn't hear back, but I didn't continue, I didn't call multiple times, so
Yeah, I've had the same experience.
did you?
Actually, for the climate magazine we put out, I want to do an article for the next issue on like what isn't recycled.
Mhm.
So an educational piece. So I might have some material coming the next few
You
months.
can write that article.
Yeah, we need
We'll
that.
get it
Yeah.
reprinted.
And then we'll just put that at the
Yeah.
island.
so we have had a lot of interaction with the county recycling recently because of their outsourcing the service to a third party. And it's been, as you can imagine, it's been kind of a messy transition for them. A lot of complaints, a lot of missed. So we happen to have had a lot of interaction with them recently. It's all been, and they're definitely wrestling with this issue of a transition. So I don't know, Sandy, when you called and what they were,
Oh,
what they
uh-huh.
had going on, but they have had their hands very, very full with this transition that they're going through now.
I'm actually not familiar. So there's a third party that's
Yes, they have
what's the company?
Republic. Yeah.
Oh.
So a
Okay.
third party is now handling, they're no longer county employees going by your houses and picking up the trash. It's a third party.
Okay.
And that third party had never done it before. So they just didn't have a familiarity with the routes. They didn't,
And this is the
city-
whole county that's
whole
now
county.
Republic. Okay.
yeah. So, and they told us they're trying to whittle their volume of complaints down from the maybe tens of thousands to a few hundred. I think they were seeing a few hundred as a victory in a month. But they've had their hands very full with that transition.
Wow.
And it's
The
been
first
several months.
week Republic picked up on my street, they brought a big garbage truck and they had 2 guys putting the stuff in a regular garbage truck, not a big truck with a machine that lifted the cans. And that was interesting. But then we never saw that truck again.
Now
ever
it's been the
since then.
traditional back.
It's been that one.
Mhm.
And one more thing I thought was interesting about the types of plastic bags. I remember one year we were at the street fair and people were coming out of the big gift shop with the red roof on, with it had the parrot.
Right.
And they had their purchases in a plastic bag, but it was a thin plastic bag and everybody went, oh no, plastic bags. So we went in and asked, why are you still using plastic bags? Because they were banned. And they said that these particular plastic bags are lightweight and they are compostable and that they're biodegradable. And I guess they cost more,
Mm.
but we thought that was interesting, but I never have seen or heard any more about that type of bag again.
I have those kind
you
of
know
garbage
anything about-
bags. That's the kind of garbage bags I use.
Where do you get those?
Amazon.
Oh,
They're great too. They're just as good as.
I don't know if that
Sweet
bag
paper.
qualifies or not. Because
Well, one of the things I
That was something.
learned about the recycling center with the plastic bags is I don't think it makes a difference about the weight or anything, is they get caught in the machinery on the belts and stuff. And that's
Right.
one reason they don't want you to use
Right.
any plastic bags in the recycling. So,
Mhm.
Just like you're not supposed to recycle shredded paper because it
yes,
jams up the
Mm.
the
rollers.
rollers. So,
I hadn't
maybe
heard that.
Yeah.
biodegradability, I guess, doesn't really help with putting it in the recycle bin.
One last thing that I wanted to mention, Mary, if it's okay, is regarding litter, is that Palmetto Pride has a number of grants that are available for us to apply for various things, and many of them, if I recall, open in October. So I was just wanting to see if perhaps we can add on our next agenda some discussion about what grants we might be interested in pursuing, based on some of our conversations today, or their grant opportunities that we might be looking at, because I think the grant becomes available the 1st of October, and then it's due, I think, by the end of the year.
Does their website have any description of the grants?
It does.
Like what-
It's not detailed, but it has just
All right.
a couple of
Okay,
bullet points
great.
about the grants.
And I know on the composting front, the city, part of how they launched their pilot was with the grant.
Mhm.
So I'm going to check with Betsy about having a compost presentation at the next meeting too.
Okay.
And maybe those two could go together.
Sounds good.
Linda, do you recall when we met with them, did she kind of talked about various grants?
Yes,
Did we
and-
have an actual like sheet?
Yes.
yes, I
She
think.
provided that, right?
Yeah, and I did one too, I thought.
I mean, I felt like we had that list.
Mhm.
Maybe
I
it was
did,
from
I did
you.
I think I did a list.
You did the list.
I
okay.
can send that to you if you like.
So you want to put that list on the next agenda? And then
Mhm.
we'll
Yeah.
discuss and kind of go through
Okay.
potential choices.
Okay.
That'd be good.
Thank you. Right, moving on to water quality, update on drainage master plan.
Yep, so you have in your packet and this is actually part of the grant application from the city, and we talked about this last month, just for kind of background. We touched on this. I mentioned this, and there was interest in just seeing more about it. So I wanted to provide it to you. And this is part of what the engineering firm that the city has hired is Davis and Floyd. They are focusing sharply on one part of the island, and then they're doing kind of a more comprehensive look at the entire island. So part of what they did in their focus area is identify 2 projects that they thought were good candidates for grant funding. And then they identified the grant that they felt like closest matched what they were seeing happening. And these pages are in your packet, and a lot of it's very technical, but you have the site plans or the aerial maps that show color on the 10-year design capacity. If you look at that, it's kind of a heat map that's showing in the event of a 10-year storm where their modeling indicates water would be and their various depths, and it goes up to about 1.5 feet deep there on Ocean Boulevard. And then you'll see behind the kind of heat maps, you see their project maps that show what they would be doing. And really, it's a collection, a group of collection pipes along the roadways, and then what they're calling a dune infiltration system that would be in the, it's really adjacent to the road, but on the beach side of the road, no farther back, no closer to the dunes, no closer to the water than the houses are. But I just really wanted to provide that for background information. And it may have been Doug who was most interested in kind of hearing about the nuts and bolts of these projects. Happy to answer any questions, but they're really just on there for informational purposes and to just let you know that the city is pursuing stormwater grants in these two areas, areas of Second and Charleston, and then 6th and 7th along Ocean.
Did Davis and Floyd, did I understand you say they are the ones that picked these two
Yes.
sites to start with?
Yes,
And is the idea that if these show really good promise in the drainage issues, that they'll maybe move to another?
so this is certainly a method that the city has never used. And I think that, yes, to your point, if it's, even though these two projects are very expensive, and in my mind, it is a much cheaper alternative when there's not an adjacent pipe system. So I would think if these were successful, this type of system could be replicated in other areas that are really isolated from the rest of a system. And that's really along the ocean front.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, and I think we're told that it was because of a lack of a primary dune, the oceanfront portions of the island just don't have stormwater infrastructure.
I see.
I think it used to just run towards the ocean and it made it to the ocean. And then, over the years, the dune system has built up. Primarily the water, the land has accreted, so the water's farther away, so it just doesn't make it there. And it has this tendency to collect on the road system. So I do think if these are successful, it'll be replicated in other areas.
You said they identified these areas because they're worse than middle of the island or other locations, or how did they settle on these two sites?
These two were in their focused area. The part of the project that they responded to was to really study the area west of 29th Avenue. So they ran kind of exhaustive modeling on that section of the island. And these were the worst two in that section of the island. In the rest of the island, kind of 29th, east of 29th, those areas had been recently studied by different engineering firms. Thomas and Hutton did kind of from 29th to 42nd, and then still a third engineer did 42nd all the way up to Wild Dunes. So they did not do really an exhaustive study of those areas that had already been studied, but they are looking at the list of priorities from the public works staff and trying to fit those projects into their list. So they're going to create, in addition to these two projects, they're going to have kind of a hit list of these are where we think you get the best bang for your buck. But as you all probably know, that the city really focused on the Wild Dunes end. Here recently, there has been a lot of focus on the area between 29th and 42nd, but really nothing's been done west of 29th. So this is kind of the project identified in that area as the worst. And then we'll get into kind of a refining strategy of going island wide and identifying the priorities across the whole island.
Does somebody in the city, I guess they must, measure and report when there's flooding? Or is it
Yeah,
mostly anecdotal about where the deepest parts? I
No,
mean,
we-
Palm Boulevard is always a mess, but
Yes, we
is
do
there some
have,
kind of,
we do have two staff members that when it rains, there's standing water. They document it really with just photos. We have
That's good.
asked that they just take very rough caliber
Right.
measurements of this is, 18 inches deep for a distance measuring 200 feet long, something to
Yeah.
give some magnitude of
Good.
the problem. But yes, that does happen now. That hasn't always happened. That started happening about 2 years ago. The city really had not had a dedicated staff person to stormwater at all. So very much fell to people in various positions as they could kind of fit it in. Now, for 2 years, there's been one dedicated staff person. Now, as of the last few months, there's two people dedicated to that effort. So it's definitely become a primary focus of city council, the community. I mean, it's just a different dynamic today than it used to be. So, our budgets reflect that, our staff makeup reflects that. The workload just reflects that is clearly a major priority. I think it is the number one priority of the city strategic plan. So the
Thank
number one money, the number one thing the city's money is going to.
Nobody had any other comments about the drainage master plan? I was just gonna ask, I know we've had issues trying to get traction with getting testing done for our
Yes.
surface water, groundwater. Curious where we are with that or what our best next steps.
Yeah,
forward
I
be.
would say that, and we kind of talked last month about if we didn't get any more traction out of the county, just pivoting to whatever our next strategy would be. And I think we're there now. We've sent 4 requests to the county. I'm not sure why they're as unresponsive as they are, but we talked a little bit, in our group about privately testing. I think we talked about, and maybe we didn't, but the Sea Grant Consortium group does similar work. But I think it would be good before this group's next meeting for our water group to just have meet again, kind of prioritize what we think our next step should be.
Do y'all have notes from the Waterkeeper meeting? I'm not sure where I put mine.
I don't think I do.
Okay,
I may. Jonathan, I bet you had the best notes.
I'd have to look.
okay, because I'm trying to remember what we established, and that could be where we get our next steps. And I do remember what we talked about, just the details of like how much it would cost per citizen science, his recommendations on citizen science versus like hiring a firm. Just trying to remember all that.
Yeah, I think generally you either pay some amount, somebody privately or go do it for you as a service, or we could just train residents or some staff members to do it.
Right, I remember him saying that's not that complicated, but you do have more room for error if you do that. So,
I mean,
well, yeah, I agree that we should just meet as a water group and figure out next steps. Yeah.
Is there any other business to come before the committee? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh,
Second.
I just have one piece of business. The county both has been releasing the greenhouse gas audit results, which are broken down by municipality. There was a presentation to the Sierra Club and another digital presentation coming up on the 14th, I believe, just for the education of the committee. And the county is currently recruiting folks to be a part of their climate action plan committees. And those are broken down the same way the city of Charleston's were, which is buildings, transportation, waste, and carbon sinks, aka like natural infrastructure. So the county is recruiting. If you're interested in being a part of the county's climate action plan committees, you can go apply. And that's coming down the pike. The third and final vote from county council is coming soon. That'll actually approve a county climate action plan. So things are proceeding.
Right, we had a motion to adjourn. Did we have a second?
Second.
Sandy seconded. All in favor?
I
Aye.